Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
I'm Jason Miller. Tonight on the Evan Miller Report, authorities have identified one of the suspected gunmen who attacked a cartoon event in Dallas, Texas over the weekend. We have the latest in this report. Also related to that Texas shooting over the weekend, the keynote speaker on that event is apparently on Al-Qaeda's most wanted list. Here in the U.S., we'll tell you more. In Syria, suicide blast rocks central Damascus, and Somalia's government bans the name Al-Shabaab name in the media. I'm Jason Miller. You're on the Evan Miller Report for this Monday, May the 4th. Also on tonight's program, the leaders set out rival choices as we wrap up this week in the UK election debates before Thursday, May the 7th. And here in U.S. politics, Carly Fiorina and Ben Carson lodged their Republican bids for president. All those stories and more. Plus, back from the Eagle Forum fresh in Los Angeles, Corey Evans.
What a great conference that was. Italy is fuming at the EU over their sluggish response to the illegal. Sarnia finally shows emotion. It's the pains of a damned soul in the courtroom. McDonald's to increase the number of franchises worldwide? Will I be able to afford one? Nah. The Dutch have dragged lawsuits across the world into the climate change debate in a strange way. And the Simpsons are sticking around the couch for another 2 years' worth of couch gags. That's all coming up in this edition of your conservative news source, the Evan Miller Report, starting now.
Live from Southern California, this is the Evan Miller Report. Jason Miller with news and politics, Corey Evan with business and entertainment. This is the Evan Miller Report on SHR Media and Public Press Radio. Here now, Jason Miller.
And a very good evening on this Monday, May the 4th, 2015. I'm Jason Miller, along with Corey Evan this evening. And ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank you for tuning in over the weekend to the 15th Annual Eagle Forum Conference. It was a pleasure for me and my co-host Corey Evan to be there. Met a lot of great people over there and a lot of great speakers as well, including Pastor Rafael Cruz, Mary Byrne, and of course Ann Shafley Corey, just to name a few. And of course, if you missed any of that conference, that's available on Spreaker.com/SHR Media. Just go over there and you can listen to that whole 3 parts of that conference there for absolutely free, ladies and gentlemen, for your listening ears if you missed any of the conference. And my goodness, Corey Evan, you did great on this weekend's SHR Weekender. Gotta applaud you for a great broadcast this weekend.
Yes, and sorry to the sackheads for some of the things I said about you. I appreciate the help. It just felt a little bit odd around the edges, but I guess that's to be expected during a live broadcast. You gotta do things on the fly.
Well, that, and you're not used to having your own production team, ladies and gentlemen. And I
usually produce that out of my own home. I pre-produce my show, if you're no doubt aware about that, but hopefully...
It still sounded just as great live to tape, Corey, as it is live as it is. But thank you.
But I would like to start doing guests on the show as well, bringing guests on as well. So,
well, we look forward
hope to make that happen.
Well, we look forward to the future of the SHR Weekender. Special thanks to Sackhead Sean and Sackhead Sacco. Come on all the way down from our Sacramento studios, all the way down to Los Angeles, to the Calvary Chapel in Costa Mesa, California. And I'd like to thank the production team over
Let's hope we get Clint next year.
Absolutely. Hopefully we can get Sackhead Clint in next year. We have to do a 6-month advance on the invitation for him, though, because apparently he's booked up solid if we do it 3 months in advance. Anyway, I would like to thank the Calvary Chapel in Costa Mesa, their production crew, for being in such great hosts and helping us set up with our production. And if you looked on social media, we had our own broadcast booth up there on the second floor there in Calvary Chapel. Didn't miss any of the action. We thank the great folks over there at Calvary Chapel for their help, as always, on that conference. And, of course, we'd like to thank Bonnie O'Neill. She is the one who organized this year's Eagle Forum Conference. And, of course, our SHR Global Affairs correspondent and the president of the California Eagle Forum, Orlene Kurla. I'd like to thank her, too, for getting us access to this year's California Eagle Forum Conference. And we look forward to doing this hopefully next year, and we'll keep you posted on that. All right, folks, we've got a lot to get to this evening when it comes to the news, and we start off with that breaking news out of Texas tonight. Authorities have identified the suspected gunman who attacked an event near Dallas exhibiting cartoons of the Prophet Muhammad over the weekend, according to media in Texas. Officials have named them as Elton Simpson and Nadir Sharif, according to the New York Times and Washington Post newspapers, respectively. Agents were searching an apartment in Phoenix, Arizona, where Simpson reportedly lived, according to an FBI official. 2 gunmen were shot after opening fire outside Sunday's event. Simpson had previously been investigated on suspicion of terrorism offenses, according to several reports. They drove to the Muhammad Al Art exhibit in the Dallas suburb of Garland as the event was ending, firing with assault rifles on 2 officers in a car park. One of those officers, a traffic policeman, returned fire and killed both the gunmen. Garland police official Joe Harum said the security officer who was with him was also shot in the lower leg. He was treated in the hospital and then released. Obviously, they were there to shoot people, Mr. Harum said. The event was organized by the American Freedom Defense Initiative, which is run by a blogger and activist, Pamela Geller. One of the keynote speakers was Dutch politician Geert Wilders, an outspoken critic of Islam in Western societies. The conference also included a contest that offered $10,000 worth of a $10,000 prize for a cartoon of the Prophet Muhammad. Depictions of the Prophet Muhammad that according to some Muslims, are offensive to them. Officials believe that Simpson sent several Twitter messages before Sunday's shooting, including one with the hashtag Texas Attack, part of which, "May Allah accept us as a martyring holy fighters." The Twitter account was later suspended. Simpson was convicted several years ago for lying to authorities about his plans to travel to Somalia, according to court documents. The FBI's John Laurel told U.S. media that both suspects appear to have lived in the same Phoenix apartment, although this has not been officially confirmed. Another addition to this story tonight, ladies and gentlemen, is the keynote speaker at this same event and contest in Garland, Texas, where those gunmen were killed. The speaker happened to be on an Al-Qaeda hit list that included Charlie Hebdo editor Steve Comchera, who was gunned down with 11 others in that attack at the French senatorial publisher Charlie Hebdo back in January. Geert Wilders, a right-wing Dutch politician who gave a 20-minute speech at the event in Garland, appeared alongside Chara Biner and Suleiman Rondai on the 2013 hit list published by Inspire magazine under the headline "Wanted Dead or Alive for Crimes Against Islam." Wilders told the Agence France Presse, quote, "I am shocked. I just spoke for half an hour about the cartoons, Islam and freedom of speech, and I had just left the premises." An unarmed security guard was also, as I said, an unarmed security guard was wounded in Sunday's shooting. According to ABC News, FBI agents raided that apartment, as we reported earlier, in Phoenix, where one of the gunmen, identified as Simpson, as we reported, was believed to have lived. Stay with the Evan Miller Report and SHR Media for the latest on this shooting out of Texas. We'll keep you up to date on the very latest as the developments become available. All right, over to the international news now, and we first start in Syria tonight, where a suicide bomber has blown himself up in the center of the Syrian capital, Damascus, according to officials and activists in the region. State media said troops had foiled an attack by a terrorist group in the Runkul El-Din district, where several major security facilities are located. The UK-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said the jihadist group Al-Nusra Front had targeted an army general responsible for logistics. Major General Mohammed Iji was injured and one of his guards were killed at Ad. However, security sources denied that the general had been targeted. Monday's attack took place near a building used by Syrian's army's munitions and supply division. Witnesses told the AFP news agency that the blast emanated from a small motorcycle and that it was followed by 15 minutes of gunfire. A terrorist group rode into the Run el-Din neighborhood on motorcycles and began clashing with security forces, according to a security official who talked with the AFP news agency. A local hospital said it was treating 6 people wounded by the explosion, but did not identify them. Rahman Ed-Rami, the head of the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, said a member of the al-Nusra Front had blown himself up next to a car carrying general aid as it passed through Run el-Din. He said General Aid and 2 of his guards were among those injured, but that was denied immediately by a security official. 3 protesters have been killed in Burundi's capital, Bujumbura, the Red Cross has said, as demonstrators against President Pierre Nkurunziza's re-election bid enter a second week. According to the BBC's Malin Jolene, who is at the scene, the police fired shots and she saw 2 of the bodies being taken away. Police denied killing the protesters and said 15 of their officers have been wounded in a grenade attack. The U.S.'s Secretary of State and BS artist John Kerry urged Mr. Nkurunziza to abandon his re-election bid. He said, quote, "We are deeply concerned about President Pierre Nkurunziza's decision, which flies directly in the face of the Constitution of this country," the U.S. Secretary of State told reporters during a visit to Kenya. The Red Cross says 12 people have been killed since protests broke out on the 26th of April after Mr. Nkurunziza was nominated by the ruling CNDD-FDD party as its candidate for the June election. Under Burundi's constitution, presidents can only be elected to 2 terms in office, but Mr. Nkurunziza's allies say his first term does not count as he was appointed by parliament. To Somalia now, where their government has told media houses, more predominantly television or radio stations, to stop referring to the militant group Al-Shabaab by their name. They instead want the group to be called INGUS, an acronym for the Somali words meaning the group that massacres the Somali people. Al-Shabaab responded to that by saying that the Somali government should be referred to by the same acronym, UNGUS. In this case, UNGUS means the group that subjects the Somali people to humiliation. Al-Shabaab, which was once affiliated to Al-Qaeda, controls many rural parts of southern Somalia. To China now, where the leaders of Taiwan's ruling party and Chinese President Xi Jinping have held the highest level talks between the 2 sides in 6 years. Nationalist Chairman Eric Chu was in Beijing for the meeting, a sign of warming relations between the 2 sides. But any rapprochement is controversial in Taiwan, which has seen protest over the prospect of closer ties. Chinese nationalists fled to Taiwan, as some may remember, in 1949 after a brutal civil war with the communists. China sees Taiwan as a breakaway province that will ultimately return, but many Taiwanese oppose reunification and fear the growing economic dependency on Beijing could be the first step towards that outcome, according to correspondents in the region. Mr. Xi said during the meeting that China and Taiwan should settle political differences through consultation, but with Taiwan's acceptance that is part of China, according to Xinjiang's state news agency. He also said Beijing will make greater efforts to open up to Taiwan and help it develop economically. The 2 sides can consult with each other on an equal basis under the principle of one China, reach a reasonable arrangement, Mr. Xi said. Some people believe Beijing wants to show Taiwan's voters that Mr. Chen is someone it can work with and that the voting for his party, the KMT, is a vote for a stable relations with China. While Mr. Chu has said he will not run in next January's presidential race, he is considered the KMT's best chance for defeating the pro-independence opposition party candidate. This according to Cindy Su from BBC News in Taipei. In March last year, hundreds of students occupied Parliament for weeks to demonstrate against a trade pact that the KMT signed with China. Thousands rallied on the streets against the mainland. Over to Greece now, where wide differences over pension and labor reforms continue to dog intensive negotiations between Greece's leftist government and its international creditors. This despite progress in other areas as the country's cash position becomes increasingly critical. Government spokesman Gabriel Savridis sounded the alarm today, saying that while Athens intended to meet all its payment obligations, including nearly €1 billion to the IMF in May, it needed fresh funds before the end of the month. Liquidity is the pressing issue, Salgaris told a news conference, continuing to say the Greek government is not waiting until the end of May for a liquidity injection. It expects this liquidity to be offered to the Greek economy as soon as possible. In a sign of Greece's increasingly frantic efforts to secure relief, Deputy Prime Minister Yanis Degrasse will travel to Frankfurt to hold talks with the European Central Bank President Mario Draghi on Tuesday, according to a government official. With leaders ruling out fresh aid until Athens implements all required reforms, Greece is hoping progress in negotiations will pave the way for the ECB to permit Greek banks to buy more short-term treasury bills, easing the government's cash crunch. Meanwhile, Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras spoke over the phone with International Monetary Fund's Managing Director Christine Lagarde today to discuss the progress of the negotiations. The government of Greece gave no details of that call. Over to the UK election news now, where party leaders have set out rival versions of the choice facing voters 3 days before the general election. David Cameron warned of the massive risk of putting the Labour in charge of the government, while Ed Miliband said the future of the NHS was the big choice on the 7th of May, which is Thursday. Meanwhile, there were scuffles at a Labour campaign event in Scotland, and the Lib Dems and Conservatives clashed over claims that Prime Minister David Cameron had admitted he would not win the election. Lord Scrifton suggested the Prime Minister had made the admission in a private conversation with the Lib Dem leader Nick Clegg, who was the Deputy Prime Minister 6 weeks ago. The Tories said the claim was 100% not true, and David Cameron told the party activists that the victory was within our grasp. In other election news today, UKIP launched its Scottish programme with a call for a UK-wide constitutional convention, but its printed manifesto is delayed in the post. Plaid crime leader Leanne Wood said her party would be prepared to vote against the Labour budget, saying Ed Miliband cannot take its support for granted. According to the BBC, it learns that a senior Labour figures are considering an option of a minority coalition with the Lib Dem party if there is a hung parliament. The Green Party leader Natalie Bennett says she has watched in horror as migrants are blamed for failures in government policy. The Lib Dems say they will spend part of the £227 million fine imposed on the Deutsche Bank on a high-value diagnostic equipment such as CT and MRI scanners on air ambulance charities. And Russell Brand has urged his followers on social media to vote Labour after his recent interview with Ed Miliband last week. According to opinion polls currently suggesting that no party will win an outright victory, and another is that says that a hung parliament is likely, despite both Conservatives and Labour claiming they could seize victory on their own. Well, stay with the Evan Miller Report and SHR Media for the latest on the UK elections. Our coverage of the UK elections starts on May the 6th at 1 a.m. Eastern on May the 7th. That's 10 p.m. Pacific on May the 6th, and 6 a.m. British Standard Time right here on SHR Media and Pundit Press Radio. We hope you tune in for the latest on UK General Election 2015 here on the SHR Media Network. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to send it over to my colleague, Corey Evan. He has more on those earthquakes. Corey, tell us more.
Yes, the latest out of Nepal coming... Excuse me, the technology needed a little chance to catch up there after the conference, but give me 3, 2... Oh, come on, behave properly, computer.
All right, in the meantime, while Corey Evan gets the technology together, we'll go ahead, take another story here. Out of New York tonight, a plainclothes policeman has died 2 days after he was shot in the head in New York City, according to officials. Brian Moore, 25, was shot this past Saturday while attempting to question a suspect from an unmarked police car in the borough in Queens. Officials said he died from his injuries on Monday at Jamaican Hospital, where he was taken after the shooting. Demetrius Blackwell, 36, was arrested soon after the incident and has since been charged on several counts. Moore is the 5th police officer to be shot and the 3rd to be killed in New York in the past 3 months. And let's see if we have Corey Evan back and see if he has his technology straightened out.
We do. This time it worked. Just a few seconds late, computer. The government of Nepal is asking foreign search and rescue teams to leave now that the likelihood of finding survivors buried by last month's earthquake has largely passed, and a top Nepali tourism official said Monday that no more climbers were likely to ascend Mount Everest this season. Some of the rescuers, however, said they had no intention of leaving immediately. The leader of a large Spanish team who spoke on condition of anonymity because he's not authorized by his embassy to speak publicly, said Nepal's government would soon divide Kathmandu, the capital, into sectors so that various teams would have responsibilities for specific parts of the city. In the early days of the rescue effort, teams often ended up searching the same sites because of a lack of coordination. Asked why his team could still rescue, asked whom his team could still rescue, the leader responded, quote, "Whoever is still alive. We don't yet know if anyone is still in there. There seems almost no chance that anyone alive is still trapped amid the rubble from the quake, which struck just before noon on April 25th. On Sunday, though, 3 survivors were found in the Sindhupalchok district, an especially hard-hit and largely rural area north of Kathmandu. The official death toll now exceeds 7,300. Dr. Ian Norton, head of the World Health Organization's program of foreign medical teams, praised the government announcement, which he said would free up airport facilities and other resources. Dr. Norton said that the thousands of rescuers who often work as firefighters in their home countries had saved a total of 16 people in the aftermath of the quake. The foreign medical teams, comprising nearly 10,000 people, had saved hundreds of lives and even more limbs. After the Haiti earthquake in 2010, nearly 2,000 rescuers saved 13 people, but nearly 30,000 Haitians died because of the lack of proper medical care, Dr. Norton said. Also Monday, a group of experienced Sherpas told the government that the Sherpa community had neither the time nor the inclination to do the necessary repairs before bad weather, which usually arrives in the 3rd week of May, making climbing impossible. So, ladies and gentlemen, there you are. If you're planning a trip to Mount Everest, I'd say forget about it for this season. Maybe next year. Italy reacted Monday to the arrival of thousands of new migrants at its southern ports by demanding that its EU partners meet the cost of taking them in. This from the Daily Mail. Speaking after the weekend rescue of nearly 6,000 migrants in the Mediterranean, Foreign Minister Paolo Gentiloni, said promises made at last month's EU summit after a migrant boat disaster left 750 dead had to be honored. Gentiloni's outburst came on a day when more than 3,000 migrants landed on southern Italian ports, most of them having been rescued by the country's Coast Guard or Navy on Saturday or Sunday. A baby girl born on board the Italian Navy patrol ship Baetica was among them. Her mother had gone into labor just before leaving Libya aboard one of 4 barely seaworthy boats whose occupants were rescued by the Baetica. Mother and baby were transferred to hospital on arrival, but were both reported to be doing well, the Navy said. Not everyone was so lucky. At least 10 migrants died, adding to an estimated total of more than 1,750 people who have perished in the waters between Libya and Italy since the start of the year. And the Princess of Cambridge has finally been revealed to the world as Charlotte Elizabeth Diana, in a touching nod to her grandfather, her grandmother, and her great-grandmother. Kensington Palace revealed the royal baby's full name today after days of speculation, and close friends of Princess Diana immediately said the choice means the spirit of Prince William's beloved mother lives on. The Duke of Cambridge was determined to pay tribute to his mother, despite the efforts of some palace courtiers to have Diana airbrushed from royal history. Yeah, good luck with that one. Within minutes of the name being announced this afternoon, Diana's closest friend Rosa Monckton said, quote, "Diana's spirit lives on in her sons, and now her name lives on in her granddaughter, Charlotte Elizabeth Diana." Diana was the godmother of Mrs. Monckton's daughter Domenica, by the way. Yeah, the Princess of Cambridge, who's now 4th in line to the throne, was born Saturday weighing 8 pounds to Kensington Palace less than 12 hours later, sought the blessing of both the Queen and Prince Charles before announcing what they had decided to call their daughter. Yeah, thankfully they went to the Queen and prince first to let them know what they were going to name her before they told the world. I'd say that's a pretty respectful move right there, wouldn't you say, Jay?
Yeah, it is. It's not necessarily per se that they have to do that, but it's more out of respect for the Queen.
That's what I'm saying right there.
There you go. So, really, ladies and gentlemen, well done. And we should note that there was, I believe, if I got my reporting correct, there was a 42-gun salute in the UK around Parliament today and other locations in the UK for the newly born princess of Cambridge today. So we look forward to see what's coming out of that palace out of the next few years, and this is just my opinion, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe lively it up a little bit, not so strict over there as it usually is over in the royal palace as it was back during the time of Diana.
Yeah, let's just hope, though, at the same time that they don't end up having a royal controversy when that baby becomes a teen.
Well, you know how that paparazzi is going to be with the new young British teen when it emerges at that time.
Yeah, but learn from the Bruce Jenner incidents. Don't use a telephoto lens.
Yeah, well, ladies and gentlemen, I think the British press fully remembers what happened to Diana when she had that car accident in France, thanks to the paparazzi.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, two good ones to reference right there.
Happening again, and if they do want to see it happen again, just for newspaper ratings and for selling of pictures, and
fire them.
Shame on you, I would say. All right, folks.
Yeah,
on that
fire
note,
them.
Absolutely right. Corey is right on that. Fire them indeed. On that note, folks, we got to take an ad break here. But when we come back on tonight's program, the political news is full tonight, as the leader of the New York Senate has been arrested on charges including extortion and soliciting bribes. Also on tonight's program, new candidates in the 2016 presidential race announced over the weekend, including Ben Carson and Carly Fiorina. We'll tell you more when we come back. And health insurance and health care are two different things. But why White House speech writers and way too much of the news media should be forced to write the above sentence 1,000 times. We have all those stories in the DC news, plus Corey Evan has what's coming up in the business news.
Yes, McDonald's is working on increasing the number of franchises around the world, hopefully giving them some sort of freedom what to put on the menu. Plus, the CEO of Tesla is set to tick off your electric provider. How? You'll find out. And yes, the Dutch have inserted a lawsuit into our lawsuits across the world coverage, and you'll understand how their effect on the so-called global warming debate is being seen by some as not enough. And the Simpsons are in for 2 more years of couch gags. Will they improve their couch gags? That's the question. That's all coming up in this edition of the Evan Miller Report. I'm Corey Evan. You're listening to SHR Media. Take 2 minutes, go get a cookie, and come on back. Give or take.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
How you doing? John Grant here. When I'm not slaving over a hot microphone on the 405radio.com Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, I check out Sean and Clint here at Sackheads Radio. We all appreciate the best political bloggers, writers, and commentators. We either get them on our shows or we make fun of them, as it should be. So check us out live Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern or forever on the podcasts on the 405radio.com.
This is Tammy Jackson, inviting you to join me on the Tammy Jackson Show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific on the 405radio.com. Put down that remote and tune into the show that covers politics, guns and the Second Amendment, religious liberties, sanctity of life, the military, and more. I host newsworthy guests and work hard to be a conservative radio show that's not like all the others. So save Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific from me, Tammy Jackson, on the 405media.com.
Hello, I'm Paul, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is my professor, Dr. Larry Arnn, on the separation of church and state.
America's founders believed in the separation of church and state, in that the country was not to have an official religion or an official sect. But that did not mean that government was to be hostile to religion, or even indifferent to religion, as many today argue. In fact, America's founding document, the Declaration of Independence, includes both a reference to God as the author of the laws of nature and a confident assertion that human beings are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Far from being hostile or indifferent to religion, America's founders understood the theology of the Declaration to be an essential part of the education of citizens.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.org.
Hi, this is Rooster from Outcry Radio. Catch me here on Blog Talk Radio every Saturday night at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Or follow my blog.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Convicted Boston Marathon bomber Dzhokhar Tsarnaev has cried in court in a rare display of emotion as relatives urged the jury to spare his life. I'm Corey Evan. Welcome back to the Evan Miller Report, the business report in just a bit. But first, Tsarnaev, who has maintained a stoic demeanor throughout the court proceedings, broke down today when an aunt testified. This from the BBC. A jury's deciding whether the 21-year-old should be put to death for carrying out the bombing with his brother. 3 people were, of course, killed and 264 others injured in the April 2013 blast. The aunt, Patimat Suleimanova, sobbed uncontrollably and could only answer a few basic questions about Tsarnaev. As Judge George O'Toole Jr. suggested that Miss Suleimanova step down from the witness stand to compose herself, Tsarnaev wiped away tears from his eyes with a tissue. His lawyers have admitted he played a role in the attacks, but argued that his older brother Tamerlan was the driving force. Tamerlan died days after the bombings following a shootout with PD. 5 family members, 3 cousins, and 2 aunts took the witness stand on Monday. Their relatives said that they had not seen Tsarnaev since he moved to the U.S. from Chechnya when he was 8. One cousin told the court that Tsarnaev was a gentle child and once cried while watching The Lion King. Oh, brother, using the Lion King card. Well, I think we better play the Judge Judy card, wouldn't you say, Jake? I mean, honestly, using the Lion King card, any kid can be a gentle kid, but whatever things go into their heads in between them being that gentle kid and the 21-year-old who potentially could be on death row. Using the Lion King, that's just pathetic in my mind.
It's baloney. It doesn't even make any sense. Grow up.
Yeah, like I said, Jay, let's play the Judge Judy card.
Yeah. All right,
and now, on to business.
Indeed. Read my mind, Mr. Evan.
Right, the Dow was up 46 points at 18,070, the Nasdaq up 11 points at 5016, and the S&P 500 was up 6.14. Rather lackluster, but then again, the banks in England being on holiday, that could have something to do with it. I mean, their FTSE was closed for the day because of the bank holiday, but never mind. Wall Street ended up higher on Monday as corporate earnings came in better than feared, although shares of McDonald's declined after the fast food chain's turnaround plan left investors wanting more. More fries? More burgers? Why don't you just order a quadruple-decker Big Mac, for heaven's sake? Anyway, Berkshire Hathaway rose 1.62%, giving the biggest boost to the S&P after the insurance and investment conglomerate's results beat forecasts. With 3/4 of corporate earnings reports in, Wall Street's now trying to divine when the Fed will begin raising interest rates. An April payroll report due on Friday could give a hint, and I will bring that to you as it becomes available. While new orders for U.S. factory goods recorded their biggest increase in 8 months in March, the underlying trend remained weak against the backdrop of a strong dollar, a further sign that a rebound in economic growth would not be as strong as last year. Monday's rally in utilities suggested some investors believe the Fed will not raise rates soon and may be looking for yield. McDonald's closed 1.71% lower after its plan to turn the fast food chain into a modern progressive burger company failed to impress shareholders. Freight train drivers stopped work on Monday afternoon, with passenger train drivers due to follow suit at 2 a.m. local time, on Tuesday in Germany, I believe this was. Yes. This is from the BBC. Their union, GDL, wants a 5% pay raise. It also wants to cut the working week from 39 hours to 37 and the right to represent staff such as train stewards. A 43-hour strike last month led to the cancellation of 2/3 of Germany's long-distance trains. Both the union and the company blame one another for the breakdown in talks that led to the new round of strikes. GDL said in a statement on its website that no results had been achieved in the negotiations. Deutsche Bahn employs 300,000 people, including 196,000 in Germany, and transports about 5.5 million people in Germany every day. So you can tell we're going to keep an eye on it.
Just take the M to work. It'll go faster. The speed limit over in Germany, I believe, is about 120 miles an hour, give or take. Come on.
Yeah, either that or just save up your money and buy a Volkswagen Beetle. Yeah, I know, making a German car joke.
Okay.
Yeah, I made a German car joke. There you are. I watch Top Gear sometimes.
With the German humor, rim shot.
Hold all autographs until after the show. McDonald's has said it will restructure its business and increase its number of franchise restaurants globally. They reported poor results for the first quarter of this year. Chief Executive Steve Easterbrook said he wanted to move away from its cumbersome structure and increase digital engagement. Mr. Easterbrook said the turnaround plan was aimed at creating a leaner management structure with more hard-edge accountability that was less built around geography and more on commercial logic. The company also announced that it would be focused more on regions that earn McDonald's the most, namely the U.S., which brings in 40% of operating income. Mr. Easterbrook also said its top international markets, such as Australia, Canada, France, and the UK, would become a priority. The firm also identified high-growth markets, including countries such as China and Poland, where new stores will be opened to boost its share in the market of IEO, informal eating out. They just have to be so darn formal about naming these things, don't they? And speaking of informal, Tesla CEO Elon Musk appears to have made a significant advance toward a goal that even he admitted sounds crazy to be informal, to change the entire energy infrastructure of the world to zero carbon. Oh dear, this is one for the record books. Yes, Musk unveiled on Thursday a new type of battery, not for his company's popular line of luxury electric vehicles, but for homes and business. Measuring at 3 feet across, 4 feet tall, and 7 inches deep, the batteries draw energy from rooftop solar panels, helping to power homes and businesses at night, reducing daytime demand on the electric grid during peak hours, and providing electric security during power outages. Brian Keane, president of Smart...
remember Solandra?
Yeah, they're hoping that this is going to be different, but Brian Keane, president of Smart Power, a nonprofit marketing firm that specializes in green energy, said this is a long and eagerly awaited moment for clean power. Yeah, about that. Yeah, around the country, consumers who install rooftop solar arrays have increasingly clashed with utility companies over net metering policies. That allows customers who generate electricity from solar panels to run their meter backward, essentially feeding power into the grid and lowering their bill when they're producing more energy than they end up using. And 43 states in the D.C. have such policies, but in recent years, utilities have pushed back against net metering in California, Arizona, and Colorado, seeking to limit consumers' ability to wean themselves from utility-generated power. In short, they will not allow us to get off the grid or even reduce our dependence on the grid for any reason right there. So I can see sort of why the folks at Tesla are looking to push back against the electric companies, but if Solandra is any indication, they better watch out.
Indeed. All right, folks, that's Corey Evan. He's had the business news. He'll be back in a couple minutes with our top 3 stories in tonight's Global Socialism. But first, ladies and gentlemen, There's the DC news here, and for some of you who are tired of presidential politics, you may just want to tune out for a couple minutes, because I have to report it, ladies and gentlemen. Carly Fiorina, the former chief executive of Hewlett-Packard, and neurosurgeon Ben Carson have now joined the growing 2016 Republican field. Of course, many people remember Carly Fiorina as the first female in her party to enter the White House race, and Mr. Carson the first African American to run on the GOP side, that being after President Obama became the first democratically elected on his side for the Democrats back in 2008. Both are political outsiders, unlike the senators and governors they now come up against for the nomination. Of course, we remember Democrat Hillary Clinton and Republican Jeb Bush, who has not yet officially entered, are among the frontrunners. Ms. Clinton was immediately targeted by Carly Fiorina when she made her announcement on ABC's Good Morning America, or as me and Corey love to call it, Good Morning Asinine. Take Parmalis and DC for your stomach, right?
Radio there, Jake.
All right. Carly Fiorina lost her only run for public office back in 2010 in a Senate race here in California by 10%. Her primary claim to fame is serving as head of computing giant Hewlett-Packard, a job from which she was ousted after 6 years amid stockholder unrest. Meantime, retired surgeon Ben Carson chose the Detroit Music Hall with a choral version of Eminem's Lose Yourself to make his announcement. He outlined his vision of the U.S. as a place of dreams where people can thrive when they escape the restrictions of government. It's time for people to rise up and take the government back, he said. The political class won't like me saying things like that. The political class comes from both parties. Mr. Carson has stumbled at times in media interviews, a sign of campaign inexperience, according to some, but controversial answers on hot-button issues like evolution, healthcare reform, and gay rights have done little damage to his positive perception among core conservative voters. If enough of them stand by Mr. Carson come next year, he could, at the very least, prove to be a spoiler for other socially conservative candidates, such as Senator Ted Cruz and former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee, who's expected to announce later this week. 3 other Republicans have already entered that race, as the aforementioned Senator Ted Cruz, Senator Rand Paul, and Senator Marco Rubio. On the Democratic side, Hillary Clinton will need to overcome the challenge of left-wing Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders. And that's the latest on the presidential news, so for those of you who are slightly tuning in the background to it, you can come back now, because I got this story on Obamacare that you may want to hear tonight. So it looks like the ACA is 0 for 2, if you're speaking in baseball terms. It's already been well documented that Obamacare plans are leaving millions of Americans struggling to find doctors who actually accept their new insurance plans. And now it turns out America's emergency rooms aren't getting a break either. A just-released poll by the American College of Emergency Physicians shows that 75% of the 2,099 ER doctors it surveyed are seeing either a major surge or at least a slight increase in the volume of patients coming into their emergency departments. Again, not only are the ERs not seeing an easing of traffic, but their burden to care for those unable to find accessible health care has actually increased in the past year. So much for all those millions of Americans who are supposed to have great new choices and great new access to health care. Right, Corey Evan?
Yes, we could use choice in America, couldn't we?
Certainly right. All right, folks, one final DC story before we get on to tonight's global socialism stories of the day. Hillary Clinton is willing to testify once before a special congressional panel investigating the 2012 attack on Benghazi, Libya. Not twice, as the panel's chairman has asked, her lawyers said on Monday. The attack, of course, has hounded former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton for years. Republicans in charge of the House of Representatives investigative panel are digging deeper as she ramps up her bid, as we mentioned, for the 2016 Democratic presidential nomination. South Carolina Republican Trey Gowdy, who's the chairman of that committee, said last month he wanted Clinton to answer questions at 2 public hearings about Benghazi and her use of a private email server while Secretary of State from 2009 to 2013. Clinton's lawyer David Kendall said that there was no basis, logic, or precedent for such an unusual request. In a letter to Gowdy, Kendall said Clinton was fully prepared to stay as long as necessary to answer all questions from the committee whenever she appears, but that she will not testify on 2 separate occasions, when one will suffice. Of course, I'll remember back in September 11, 2012, when 4 Americans, including U.S. Ambassador Chris Stevens, were killed when militants stormed U.S. facilities in the eastern Libyan city of Benghazi. All right, folks, now it's time for that little segment here on the program we love to call here on the program, Corey Evan.
It's our continuing... not yet, Echo Man. It's time for our continuing battle against... Now it is. Global socialism!
What you got for us today, Cor?
Well, starting off from Yahoo News, the U.S. Supreme Court on Monday left intact New Jersey's ban on counseling intended to change the sexual orientation of gay children. The court declined to hear a challenge to the law, meaning that a September ruling by the Third U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals upholding the ban is the final word on the matter. The appeals court said the ban, which Republican Governor Chris Christie signed into law in 2013, did not violate the free speech or religious rights of counselors offering gay conversion therapy to convert homosexual minors into heterosexuals. Oh, brother. Governor Chris Christie signed that. Ladies and gentlemen, beware. Smith College has joined the list of schools embracing gender equality by welcoming female transgender applicants. The esteemed women's university, located in Northampton, Massachusetts, will accept applications from transgender students who identify as women beginning this fall, according to the Smith College Board of Trustees announced on Saturday. And morning, the court asked the Solicitor General office. Oh no. I said that. Yes.
Alright, looks like Corey Evan not only messed that up, but we lost his audio because he went garbled there. So hopefully we can get him back here in the next couple minutes here on the program. Wow. Quite amazing. Alright, let's see if we get him.
Is it working?
Yes.
Is it working now? There we are. Yes. The Solicitor General's office, U.S. Supreme Court asked, in a lawsuit involving 3 states about the commercial sales of marijuana for recreational use in Colorado. The lawsuit was brought by the state of Nebraska and Oklahoma last December when their attorneys general asked the Supreme Court to rule on the legality of the Colorado legalized marijuana law in an original jurisdiction case. They're asking that Colorado now stop personal marijuana use or to go back to its previous laws that prosecuted marijuana use as a crime in the state. Yeah, I'll go ahead and wrap it right now because I've got some great lawsuits for you coming up. So, how will we ever teach the youth of today to respect being born as is? How many grass fires will it take to wean the stoners off of marijuana? And how did I end up with an orange face from plain old cheese popcorn? Stay tuned for developments in our continuing battle against
And now it's time for lawsuits across America. The cases are real. All rise for the Honorable Corey Evan.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, sometimes technology isn't perfect. Right as we were going to go to Corey Evan, we lost Corey Evan on tonight's Lawsuits Across America. So hopefully we can get him back here in the next couple minutes here on the program. See if we can get him back, ladies and gentlemen. Apologies to that, but he had a very good Lawsuits Across the World edition tonight, so let's hope we get him back. I think we got him back, so we already ran the intro course, so just take it away. What's in tonight?
Yes,
Lawsuits Across the World.
Sit, people. A lawsuit in the Netherlands is taking an unusual approach to climate change, so much, in fact, that experts around the world are watching it closely, wondering whether it might spark a major shift in environmentalist efforts to limit carbon emissions. If that happens, it won't be the first time that There we are. If that happens, it won't be the first time that Marja Minnesma has turned the status quo on its head. She's founder and director of a Dutch environmental organization called Urgenda, an abbreviation for Urgent Agenda. Quote, sometimes you have to do something and that, like, oh, that's quite easy, why don't we do that? And then people follow, she says at her office in Amsterdam. For example, a few years ago, the Dutch government told her that solar panels weren't feasible. Not enough people wanted them, she was told, and the price was too high. So Minnesma started taking orders herself. She had a massive contact list from an earlier project establishing the Dutch equivalent of Earth Day. And her crazy-sounding plan has now become common. Minnesma could have remained the bulk solar panel purchasing business, or she could have changed her name and escaped with 20 million euros to a distant tropical island. But she's more interested in successfully doing something that's never been done before and then moving on. Today, she's working on another climate change moonshot. Her colleague, Dennis van Berkel, takes us to the outskirts of Amsterdam and says that there's a wide stretch of water where ducks and geese paddle in the shallows, blah, 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 blah. And the country's goals to cut emissions are far less ambitious than its European neighbor. Case including an event planner named Natasha Vandenberg. She explains that her children will be more affected by climate change than she will, since they will live. Vandenberg heats her house through solar power, she rides bicycles, and recycles, but she believes that individual action is not enough, something to which the government has not replied. Oh, brother. So, essentially, this lawsuit is for the birds. And Western Michigan University will pay $35,000 to settle a federal suit filed last year by a student group that said universities' policies are unconstitutional and restrict free speech on campus. That's according to the Foundation for Individual Rights in Education, a Philly-based organization that assisted the Kalamazoo Peace Center in its legal action, which was filed in October in U.S. District Court. Attorneys for WMU and the Peace Center reached a settlement Thursday, according to court documents. Those documents did not, however, disclose the terms of the settlement. But as soon as I get more info on this, I'll bring it to you. In the meantime, it's case dismissed.
Corey Evan with tonight's Lawsuits Across America. And ladies and gentlemen, I don't often say this to segue into the entertainment report, but it's time for Corey Evan to talk about The Simpsons.
Yes, unfortunately, I do have a Simpsons story for you, Jay. Fox said Monday that it has renewed the animated series for a 27th and 28th season, which will carry it to a total of 625 episodes. Yep, that's the full text of it right there, Jay. More details as it becomes available, but we don't really need it because when it comes to The Simpsons, there are really three things that you need to know. Lisa Simpson is not brainwashed by...
Bonehead.
Yeah, daughter Lisa is not brainwashed by corporate propaganda. At least she says she's not. The little baby is more evil than you think, and Homer is just in it for nuts.
Corey.
And Grace Lee, yeah. And Jay, here's a little bit of sad news for you, I'm afraid. Grace Lee Whitney, who played Captain Kirk's assistant on the original Star Trek, has died. She died of natural causes Friday in her home in the Central California town of Coarsegold, about 50 miles north of Fresno, according to her son Jonathan Dweck. She was 85. She wrote that she struggled with her addictions of being an alcoholic for many years before getting treatment and regaining her career with the help of Leonard Nimoy, who starred as Spock in the series. Sorry to sadden you, Jay, but at least she died of natural causes, so...
Well, everybody has their time and place. At least it was natural causes, not assisted suicide like they're trying to press on the Sacramento Capitol.
Yeah, good riddance to Dr. Kevorkian. But at any rate, Avengers Age of Ultron stole the scene with $191.3 million in receipts. Furious 7 took a nosedive to $6.6 million, and The Age of Adeline is still in the top 3 with $6.2 million.
Yes, nice. Very nice. And I should state, ladies and gentlemen, that I did go see the Avengers Age of Ultron this weekend. I was a bit disappointed. It wasn't as big as the other ones are. I think they cut down on the special effects budget on this one because they maybe overspent on the last one. It's a possibility. that they did that. I didn't see this one as such a great one, so maybe you want to wait for it to come out on DVD. That's just this newsman's opinion. Don't mean to question the entertainment correspondent on this one, but, you know, hey, movie's a movie, and that's what I think about it.
Right.
But nice to see the Age of Andaline still at, I think you said number 3?
Yes.
So that looks like it. That's a very good film, and ladies and gentlemen, I did go see it a second time. So that movie was that good. I went to see it.
I've got to see it one of these times this week.
You got to, man. You have to go see that. That's a great historical movie. Of course, not everything in there historically, of course, is true, but references to historical events in history, great movie to go see. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, that is the Evan Miller Report for this evening, on the evening of Monday, May the 4th, 2015. I'm Jason Miller.
And I'm Corey Evan. Follow us on Facebook.com/The Evan Miller Report and tweet us at EM Radio Report. You'd be glad you did. Coming up next is the BBC weather from the Met Office.
Good night, everybody. We'll talk to you tomorrow after the weather, the Exceptional Conservative Show with Ken McClellan. Good night, everybody.
Hello, I'm Thomas Schaffernacker with your weather outlook for Canada and the United States. Let's snap to it. Across the eastern half of the continent here, this eastern seaboard, big air of high pressure here, so there's lots of sunshine. It feels very warm. As far north as New England, we've got temperatures more like June, really. Quebec also warming up, but take a look at these storms across Texas, Kansas, Oklahoma here, basically Tornado Alley, more or less. A feed of moisture coming out of the Gulf here, so it looks as though there will be some rumbles of thunder across the plains through the course of Tuesday. Let's have a look at both sides of the continent then as we go through Tuesday. So from British Columbia here, you can see some rain showers about. Temperatures around about 10, 11, 12 degrees. That's in the 50s in Fahrenheit. For California, it's looking dry in San Francisco. Here's sunshine up to around about 20 degrees or so. And Los Angeles is looking fairly similar. Meanwhile, on this northeastern side, it's looking sunny, warm there in Washington and New York City. A little bit of rain, perhaps. And down south towards Florida, also plenty of warm sunshine, as you'd expect in the north of Orlando. But Miami's looking a bit stormy. There's a lot of storminess around, actually, across the Bahamas over the next few days. Wednesday's and Thursday's weather forecast stays warm and sunny there in Atlanta. New York's going to eventually cool off a little bit, and in Miami, some thunder showers on the way. Meanwhile, in Vancouver, it's set fair with temperatures between 15 and 18 degrees.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.